Okay, hi Frank.
Hi, Sharon.
So this is our round number two. We've already tried to do this once, and I'm brand new at trying to do a podcast. So I'm learning. Thanks for your patience and thanks for coming back. Those who are watching, I'd like to welcome Frank Carlson to the show. By the way, we are calling this the Perceptive Podcast. Perceptive here, perceptive. Okay, there you go. Perceptive. So Perceptive is our software consulting company. We've been around for about 10 years. Frank was actually a part of our company until very recently. I've learned a lot from Frank, and Frank's been one of those friends slash colleagues slash we've had many different relationships. Frank has been a customer, he's been a colleague, most of all, he's a friend. And Frank is one of those friends. He will tell me when something needs to be told. And but he says it so nicely that I do it happily, and I don't take that as criticism. But and Frank's I've known Frank for about 15, 20, 25 years. I don't even remember how long, Frank. But and over the
It's been a
years,
long time.
Frank, I've learned a lot from you. Even though you're no longer with Perceptive, I feel like I need to keep learning from you. So we'll keep doing this. But for those who are watching, Frank, welcome to the show. Frank is the in charge of. Frank, help me out here. What exactly is your title?
Senior Director of Impact Investing and for KeHE Cares Foundation. So it's a lot different than when we were working doing IT stuff together. We've done that for so many years, and just doubling back, I just really appreciate you and our friendship and relationship we've had, the fun we've had, just sharing life and doing life together. It's just been a joy. So I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Frank. So, Frank, I thought today it would make sense and I think it'd be a great conversation. First of all, to talk about what impact investing is. We know what impact means, or I know what impact means. I know what investing means. The two words combined. What does it mean in, I guess, a corporate sense? So I'd like to understand that. And then we both have an IT background. I'd like to see how you're going to take your IT brain and make impact investing supercharged with more data, more analysis, more this, more that. Because, and by the way, the goal of this podcast is not to just talk technology. I think there are lots of shows out there that are lots of conversations, lots of podcasts that talk about technology. This one, I really want to focus more on the business challenges, the organizational challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. Stories from the trenches, type of perspective, and then let's talk about how do we solve those problems with technology. So I wanted to be more heavy on the business side and not so much the bits and bytes of the technology. So with that, Frank, why don't you tell us about the business, impact investing, all that good stuff, and then we'll go into software and technology and all that stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, happy to. As you mentioned before, Shared, we worked together until about May 1st, when I had the opportunity to come to work for a foundation. And that foundation is KeHE Cares Foundation, and totally different than IT that we've worked on for so many years. And I've been learning a lot. It's just a privilege to be part of the foundation where, the vision really of the foundation is to help people that are suffering from poverty and abuse and those marginalized and forgotten. And really our goal is so that they experience dignity and grace and justice and restoration. So that's our vision statement. That's why we exist. The foundation, it came about because there's a business by the name of KeHE Distributors. They're a faith-based company, and they started giving 10% of their profits towards this vision. That's grown over the years to the point where there's a team now that works on vetting organizations and giving the money away, right? Working with nonprofits, finding partners, and giving the money away. Well, that money kept on growing, and we were giving money away, and we really like to do that with relationships, get to know the people that and the organizations that we're giving to. Our employees need to be involved in the organizations, that they're volunteering at these organizations, they bring them to us. So we are giving to these organizations, have done that for a great number of years. The business just keeps on growing. Lord keeps on blessing it. So, there's money that we feel like now we're to the point we need to start investing, and trying to be self-sustaining with the organization. So really that's the goal for investing. We've moved into investing. We still give to charities and to other nonprofits, but now we started investing. And so that's a little bit different, but the focus is called impact investing, because it's not only invest for a profit, just like regular financial investments, market securities and such, stocks and bonds. And so we're interested in a profit, but at the same time, we're looking to invest in ways that advance the vision of the foundation. That impact investing is sometimes, you might call it quadruple bottom line. I don't know if you've ever heard of that word, quadruple bottom line, but
I have not. Break it down for us.
Yeah, it's really easy to understand if you remember 4 P's, So there's 4 P's. Profit is the first bottom line, right? That everybody knows about. But then there's also, you look at the planet, people, and purpose. So with people, you look at kind of how the business treats its employees.
Profit, one more time.
Yep.
Profit,
planet. Is it responsible towards the planet with sustainability, with climate change, et cetera, right? Are the businesses that we're investing in responsible with creation, right? So that's the second P. The third one is people. How does the business treat its people? Dignity, with respect. Do they pay them well? Can they earn we call it a thrivable wage, or a good wage, a livable wage? How are they treating their people? So we kind of evaluate that. And then the last piece, and one of the most important, is the purpose. So what's the purpose of the organization, or the business in this case? What's the purpose of the business? And most times, the businesses are really the ones that we invest in. They're helping people out of poverty. So they're giving people jobs. That's the best way, right? I mean, that, the best way to eliminate poverty is to give people jobs. I know,
teach them how to fish.
That's right. Right. And with your company, you employ, you have many people that are relying on you, right? I mean, you've got developers, probably 12, 15 developers now. Is that what you're up to now? And, project managers and relationship folks. I mean, there's a lot of people relying on you, and lots of great jobs have been created. That's the best way to eliminate people from poverty, especially in developing nations, in fragile economies where capital is needed to be invested in order to move these businesses where there's corruption around the world. How can honest capital be deployed to really sustain these businesses and lift people out of poverty? So again, I kind of went off a little bit on that. I get excited about it, but impact investing is really about profit, as well as the planet, people, and purpose. And that purpose is a big one.
So typically I would think of investing in a foundational sort of construct. I would think of it as nonprofit, but this is not nonprofit. You are a KE Foundation is a for-profit organization. You would invest money, expect some returns back. Sounds like whatever the returns are, but you would not treat it as profit in a typical corporate sense. You would take that money back and roll it back into an investment to be able to help even more people. So it's not like that profit coming back is, paying for some, executive cruise ships in the Bahamas for people. Like you spend it sensibly, if I understand it correctly.
Pretty close. I guess I didn't explain exactly right. The foundation is a nonprofit, so we are a nonprofit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're the nonprofit arm of this KeHE Distributors. So they provide the funds to us. We're a nonprofit, just a standard foundation, but we give the money. We have we call it a pillar. It's one of our departments, if you will. They give the money away. So we give the vast majority of money away every year. But then we also have additional funds. And with these funds, we're looking to invest in private equities and other businesses. We give loans to some companies, but also private equity. And they give us interest on our loans that we give them. We also make a profit from some of those investments. And then, but those businesses we invest in have great purpose. So let me give you an example. There's a business called Pure Flow. It's in Uganda. There's a couple of gentlemen who saw a business opportunity, but also wanted to be involved in people's lives, right? And what they saw was do you know what boda bodas are? Boda bodas. They're basically motorcycle taxi drivers. They're kind of like tuk-tuks, I guess, in some countries, or taxi cabs.
Tuk-tuks would be, I think Thailand would call them tuk-tuks. In India, right, you would call them rickshaw, auto rickshaw.
Okay. Are those powered, or are those like
they run on gasoline? Well,
okay.
Before we had the auto rickshaw, we had the bicycle rickshaw. So there would be an individual riding I mean, you see that even in downtown Minneapolis sometimes.
Sure.
I think late night cab rides, you can take the rickshaw, especially if it's during the summertime. But yes, now they are powered. Now they're all powered. Unless you go to some very rural areas, you may still see the bicycles. But I think they're almost extinct at this point.
Okay. Yeah, these are kind of the same service is provided, but they do them basically on motorcycles in Uganda. And they would go, I think it got the name, they would go from border to border in one of the country, along the country. And so they would call boda boda, like we're going from border to border kind of deal. So boda boda drivers. So, but anyways, they're kind of taxi drivers, if you will, on motorcycles. There was no way for them to own their bikes, right? They were kind of paying very high interest rates. It was a perpetual loan. They would never own their bike. They would always it was almost like they were renting their bike, right? And so these two gentlemen said, hey, if we were able to give a better rate and work it out, get some financing, we could put a financing package together so these boda boda drivers they can kind of own their bikes free and clear after 3 years, right? And then their income would rise tremendously. They'd be able to provide more for their families and all the people that are part of their household. And so that's what they did. They started working with boda boda drivers and giving them solid, kind of good interest rate. We get a return from the dollars that we've invested with them. And they started working with each of the boda boda drivers and meeting with them, having lunch with them, developing relationships with them, getting to know their families, tending to their spiritual needs. So that's really an important piece of what they're doing with the boda boda drivers. So we not only have invested in this company that we get a profit from, and then we can reinvest that, but they also have a very important purpose. Not only that purpose of coming alongside, treating their boda drivers well, but also raising them out of poverty as they can more readily provide for their families. So,
Okay, cool.
is that helpful?
It's helpful. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out. It's non-profit, but we keep
Yep.
using the word profit. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, if it's non-profit, what, but we don't have to go into that. I think I do get the general idea. You use the profit not in terms of tax filings, not in that context, but you're using profit in terms of return on investment, perhaps, rather than,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So no, I get it.
A financial return. That's a great way to describe it. We get a financial return on that investment, which then we're able to reinvest that again. It allows us. Our goal is, with those returns, we want to get to the place where those returns are large enough that we can kind of continue to sustain the level of giving that we've given over the years, even if the business wasn't able to provide us any more. Our KeHE distributors that gives us money every year, if they had a tough year and they didn't have any net profits, let's say they didn't give the foundation, weren't able to give the foundation anything, we'd still be able to give and sustain that giving that we have over the years, because we've invested well and we've got a return that we can then give to the organization.
That's fascinating, Frank. So that's a fun job. I mean, I'm sure you will, if you haven't already, at some point you'll be going to Uganda to meet some of these individuals in person, shake their hands, maybe ride their boda. And I'm curious, how many passengers do you know how many passengers a boda takes? I mean, do you
safely or safely? No, I don't. Typically it's probably only supposed to be one, but I'm sure they have 3-4 people on that they can.
Do they do the sidecar? Sidecar?
Not the ones that I've seen, but somebody goes on the gas tank, maybe a younger child on the gas tank and somebody on the back, and so they've got 3 or maybe even right.
When I was growing up, my dad, he had a Vespa scooter, and this was in the 70s. So my mom sat, of course, in the back, side saddle, because you women, of course, in the States, it would be maybe skirts and things. Over in India, it was saris. So and I was maybe 2 years old, so I would be on her lap while she's on the back of the scooter. My brother, who's 4 years older than me, he would be in the front standing. He was probably all of 2.5 feet, but tall enough to be able to hold the handle, and that's how we traveled, the 4 of us in the 70s. So, but they did 15 miles an hour, so it was fine.
Right. And same thing as I've done work in Honduras. I see that it's the whole family, right, is on the motorcycle. And
the hardest thing, Frank, about that, and I still remember it, I was a baby then. I was 2 years old. Okay, if my mom wore a nylon sari, it was a nightmare. Seriously, that was rough. Because if it was just pure cotton, that's easy because you can get a grip on the cotton, Right. Nylon, right. You just keep sliding, and my mom would have to keep pulling me up. So think about this. I still have that memory from when I was 2 years old.
Wow.
So that's how careful I had to be. So.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds me of I had a motorcycle when I was in college, right? And I first got it and I waxed it all up, and even the seat and everything, and it was a pretty fast engine on the motorcycle. And I got on it and I took off and I just hit it hard, and I just went flying up like
how many cc's are we talking?
750.
That's a decent engine.
Kawasaki 750. It could move, and I hit it. Shared my whole body slid off the back, and I'm just hanging on for dear life. Goodness. Because I found out quickly you don't wax the seat, Armor All. Remember Armor All? That's the Armor All. I had Armor All the seat, and it just just kind of like the nylon for you, probably.
Oh yeah, probably. Sounds even worse than nylon.
It was.
Well, the Vespa, I think, was all of maybe 100 cc, so it didn't quite go as fast.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's just kind of back to the Boda drivers. It is like you were talking about. It's a privilege to be involved in investing in businesses like that.
In how many countries do you invest? How many countries
right now we have
right now?
24 companies and or 24 investments. And I would say we are probably in 10 countries. We're pretty deeply invested in India, believe it or not. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, I don't think, but it's called Creation Investments. And we're basically working with the underbanked and non-banked in India to bring them financial services and just a whole array of services. So it's probably beyond the scope of our conversation here today, but love to chat with you more about that, and have been invited, just like you've invited me to go to India, and when I was working with you, the Creation Investments have asked us as investors to travel to India as well. So we'll have to tag team.
Do you have a date in mind?
I don't, not yet.
Okay. Well,
But I do have.
I better not find out that. Yeah, I better not find out that you've been to India and you're like. I better not find out after the fact, because then that will not be pretty for anybody.
No way. No.
Okay, good. All right, so that's exciting, Frank. Thanks for the background and the work that you do. Sounds like meaningful work, very meaningful work. So thank you for doing that. Okay, so now let's switch gears a little bit. So we've talked about the business side of it, we talked the financial side of it, what the foundation does, what you do, etc. So technology, everybody, every business, every organization, profit, non-profit, you name it, it's all data. Impact is all data. I mean, one of the things that you talked about, the 4 Ps, and of course, you talk about profit. I think profit is a simple one to measure. It's probably the simplest of all the 4 Ps. Profit is probably the simplest one to measure. Absolutely. It's a pure number, ROI. How much did we give, for how long did we give it for? How much did we get back, if anything? Hopefully something. So that's easy. Planet. What are the criteria to measure the impact on the planet? Green, recyclable things, and reducing carbon emissions, and reducing landfills, making sure that the water quality is good, the air quality is good, the soil is not affected. You don't want to invest in something that's cutting trees, of course, and things of that sort. So you've got all those criteria for success on planet. People probably even harder to measure, because how do you measure happiness? That's a tough one. I mean, you can measure I think on people, I guess your biggest measure might be how much is their income now, because better financial health can usually make people better off in many, many aspects of life. Food security, shelter security, clothing security, etc., etc. So you've got that, but I'm sure there are some aspects to the people part of it which are not tangible, financially measured gains. Are they happier? Do they feel more fulfilled? Do they have better relationships? Do they have stronger families? Are they building stronger communities? Not so easy to measure. And the fourth one is the purpose. Now the purpose sounds like falls on the KeHE side. Why does KeHE do this? And then that's probably the hardest to measure and probably the most important, because unless people are driven and have the right purpose, none of the other P's are going to happen. Right. So measurement is a challenge. I mean, defining the criteria of measurement, and it very well might be a moving target, because you may have with organization A, you may have these set of criteria with organization B, you may have a different set of criteria. Because no two countries are the same, no two organizations are the same. With the Boda Boda, there's a certain set of criteria. You might be having, boat taxis somewhere, and maybe you call them Boda Boda too, I don't know. So it's different set of criteria. So I want to learn a little bit about how do you define these success criteria? How do you capture data for these 4 impact buckets? That's one. The second part is, now that you have captured these data points for the impacts, how do you analyze those things? What type of regressions and correlations do you run? What type of software tools do you use? Because sure, you could look at endless Excel files and try and find trends. And perhaps you can, chart out stuff in Excel, and you can say, okay, show me a donut chart, a pie chart, and this chart and that chart. Sure, you can do that, but we could do the same thing in 1985. So, and now in the days of ChatGPT and, all the buzzwords we hear about. And I know you, Frank, if there's a new technology in the market, you will go and taste it. You will go and taste, not just taste it. You will bring it to the dinner table and feed everybody. So, which is why I'm so curious that I want this is a great conversation, because I know you're there on the bleeding edge of, okay, some company, Microsoft, just released this, and it's how many times has it happened, Frank? You say, sure, Microsoft has released this. Have you heard about it? And I try not looking embarrassed when I say no. And you're like, this was released like a week ago. And then I try and keep a straight face and still trying to look intelligent. So, all right, I'll stop there. Tell us about how, I'm guessing, and we've talked about this, you're not really using too much technology at the moment, but you have a vision on where you want to go with using technology to just make this whole operational thing more efficient and more, just, being able to make better decisions using technology. So tell us about that.
I'd love to. Yeah, I think the first thing to talk about is I'm really just digging in on this, right, from the into my job. I've been here about 5 months with the foundation, so it's pretty new for me. But as I look at it, it just like you said, the profit is pretty straightforward, right? It's either return on investment or IRR or multiples on investment capital, kind of some of these well-established metrics. So that's an easier one. You hit the nail on the head with the planet. It's about reducing waste and carbon credit, reducing carbon emissions and carbon credits. And we have another person in the organization, in the business, who's leading our efforts on corporate social responsibility. KeHE happens to be a B Corp as well. So a lot of that kind of...
What's a B Corp?
B Corp is just a certification that you are a company that is working for the good of society, essentially. So we're privileged and happy to have that certification on the business side. And
nice.
When it relates to the planet and impacts, if there's a certain investment that we're looking at and I have questions about it, I can flip those over to the person who leads our corporate social responsibility. So that's kind of how we, can check that, how we're doing from a planet perspective. The people and the purpose, as you said, that gets more challenging, right? How do you really measure that? If I can, even speak of one example, even let's take the PureFlow company that we were speaking about earlier. It's like we help the Boda Boda driver, right? So do we count the number of jobs that have been created? Because there's a number of jobs. So PureFlow as a business has grown and has multiple, it's almost like they have multiple offices in many different cities, right? So there's kind of the financial person and some of the analysts that look at whether the prospective person we're going to lend the money to, are they qualified for the loan, right? So we've got a whole, the PureFlow company has, 4 or 5 people in each of these offices that they've opened up, right? So there's a number of people there's new jobs that have been created, a number of people are employed there. But then you raise the income of each of the Boda Boda drivers, but does that just impact them? No, it impacts all of their family members, right? Their spouses and their children and their grandparents and, anybody who's living in that household. And so how do you quantify how much good you're doing, or how many jobs you've created even, or how much poverty you've eliminated because of that investment? So it's a challenge, right? It's a huge challenge.
I would love to apply some statistical type of tools to measure that. So, you can do descriptive statistics, right, where you capture data from every individual that is in the equation, in the financial equation, in the financial money flow. If that number is, if you're investing at, say, a community level, or at a equivalent of, say, a county or a state or something like that, then we would have to do the statistics at perhaps an inferential level, where you infer based on some sampling of the data, right? So I would love to see where do you do descriptive data collection, where do you do sampling, and do inferential data analysis, and how accurate and consistent and valid. Because you can ask a question and hey, what do you think? Are you on a scale of 1 to 5? Happy, very happy, satisfied, dissatisfied? Oftentimes people might give an answer that they feel that the other one, or give an answer that is what they think they should, rather than what the reality might be. Mm-hmm. So and in these socio-economic type of scenarios, people's emotions, people's perception of what's right or wrong, or what's a right or wrong answer comes into play. So maybe that's a more detailed discussion for at some point, and then maybe that's an impossible one to nail to 100%. But I'm truly curious how that data is gathered.
Right. Yeah, and I know each individual organization kind of tracks their own data. Yeah, I'm super excited not only to work with you on this aspect of it, but also on how do we report on that information, right? Where do we store it? How do we bring it into a data warehouse? How do we visualize it and bring it out from a BI perspective, right? So yeah, super excited as I learn more to work with you on some of those questions and answers. And I think the other piece to add to that is, I've found out that there is a consortium that has developed a framework for impact and management, right? So I believe it's called the Impact Management Project, and they've got kind of a measurement framework that basically tracks impacts. So we can kind of overlay what this framework is with some of the questions that you're bringing in terms of statistics, and I'm sure as we dive deep into that, there's some good stuff in there. Are they to the level of regression analysis and using tools and that I'm not sure if they're there yet, but
there would have to be an insane amount of correlation going on, okay, with the Boda Boda driver, right? So if there is more rides of these taxis means more pavement, more investment for highways, maybe more collection of tolls. And if the toll collection is happening somewhere, then the community that's living around where the toll booths might be, they may benefit. So now you've got somehow, maybe that impacts their agricultural output. So as you look at, demographic data, you could be impacting ag. Now we're talking transportation, but you could be impacting ag.
Mhm.
You could be impacting, of course, the carbon emissions, although we want to, so there's all these sort of trigger effects of, just this one investment into these motorcycle taxis, and then correlating all these. And some of these correlations may be valid, some may be, they may see a similar trend up and down, but they have absolutely no correlation. So I think it would be a fascinating exercise as far as so I was thinking of two things, Frank. Now I'm putting my IT hat on because that's basically all I really know. I think. So two things. One, for data collection, if somehow we can use, and I know in rural communities and low income communities, they may or may not use Facebook, but everybody uses WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the staple social media everywhere. And it's simpler. It's simpler than Facebook. People love that. WhatsApp has polling. So you can actually get polls. You can poll people on how are things going. Yeah, if we can use, and maybe that's part of the impact management project. By the way, the acronym would be IMP, and that's very important. So I don't know if that's how if the acronym came first and they retrofitted the IMP, but I like it. So maybe that's part of it, but I think if we can use something like WhatsApp, or if you wanted to get a little bit fancier with it, we could use like something like Power Apps from Microsoft. And or you know what, we could even use Google Forms. I think most people have Google Mail everywhere. So that could be a good data collection mechanism. Google Forms, Power Apps. Power Apps, of course, could have workflows and things of that sort for approvals and things. And on the visualization and analytics side of it, I think it would be super easy to build a data warehouse. By the way, have you heard that? Heard of Microsoft Fabric?
I've generally heard about it, but I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay, so next time you log into Power BI, you will see a different logo of Power BI, and it looks like an F. So Power BI is part of this umbrella grouping of products now from Microsoft, which is called Microsoft Fabric. So that Power BI has this F Fabric logo now. So, and this is to
look at that, Sharad. I'm out of it for a couple of months, and I'm already behind.
You are indeed. I'm pretty impressed with myself right now. This has never happened in the history of Sharad and Frank conversation, but I actually knew something that you didn't. So it'd be fairly easy to capture all that data, whether we get it from WhatsApp or Microsoft Power Apps or Google Forms, whatever that might be. Or maybe it's coming out of a database that we run an ETL on, and we pull it into a data warehouse in Microsoft Azure or something like that. We get all that data, get the data cleaned up, and you have these 20 companies you work with. All the data is in this one single location. Once again, the trick is going to be defining those criteria of success that are like a lowest common denominator across the board that apply to all 20 more or less. And then we can start measuring them and looking at trends in analytics and doing some, start looking at outliers and which investment is doing well, where do we invest more money, which investment, do we ask more questions on, and things of that sort. So I'd love to work with you on that at some point in the future. Yeah. But those are the random thoughts in my mind.
Great. No, those are great thoughts. Yeah. As usual, like we kind of can brainstorm together on things, and it turns into something really, really special. So would love to investigate that further with you. Like you said, it has some really intriguing possibilities, and we need to do it, right? Like from the foundation perspective, we need to analyze our we're looking to be a force for good, right? And so, but how do we measure that? And that's really helpful towards that.
Very cool. Well, Frank, this was a great conversation as always, and thank you. Yeah, we'll have to keep doing this more often, and I feel like I can pin you down, like with something like this. I have I will have more success getting you to commit to hang out with me if I say we are doing a podcast. So maybe I might just go and just like fake a podcast and then just to hang out with you or something like that.
I know I'd love to hang out with you anytime. So it's all good.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you once
All right,
again.
my friend.
And yeah, thanks for whoever chose to watch it. This was a pretty long video, guys. So hopefully people got something out of it. I thank you for watching. And, this is really about learning something new. I learned a lot of new things today about impact investing. I learned what Boda Boda is, among many other things. And that's really the spirit of the show. That's the spirit of the Perceptive Podcast, is to be perceptive and ask those probing questions, learn something new, and something that things are happening all around us. And I think, I'll keep inviting exceptional folks like Frank on this podcast. I don't know who is going to be the next one, but we'll it's going to be some other industry most likely. So until next time, ask questions, be curious, and be perceptive. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.